Greetings, family. Welcome to Tony's Barbershop. We have the lovely Sister Alfie inside our host, and in fact, she was here about exactly a year ago. And if I remember, she was here and she had to go to Jamaica.
Yes.
And it's about a year ago. And I just realized at the time it's very, very quick. So she's with us, and if I remember when we did speak about a year ago, that I know her for a very long time, and just recently now we've been connecting and doing some stuff together and so forth.
Yes.
But Alfred, for those of us who don't know you, I wonder if you just give a little background about yourself, my sister.
A quick background is I have lived in Tottenham since I arrived in England. That's Tottenham in London, folks. I am a lawyer by trade, and I have been a lawyer now for about 16 years.
16 years?
Yes, with training, probably about 20 years I've been at this job. Most of my legal practice has been around relationships and family relationships, civil relationships. I haven't done any real criminal work because I didn't want to specialize in that area. But in terms of family relationships, I would say, I suppose I'm an expert in that field. Unmarried. I am originally from Jamaica, but I believe myself to be an African born in the diaspora.
Okay. Talking about relationships, I know you've done a lot of work in that particular area.
Yes.
I wonder if you just get a little definition of how you define relationships, especially between man and woman.
For me, I would say that obviously coming from a Caribbean African background, I do recognize that we have some difficulties in our community, but I also recognize that there are so many strong relationships and strong friendships that sometimes we do not see the value in because we focus sometimes too much on the negatives. But I think that on one level, I don't think that there are many communities that can be as close as a black community, but we do not see it because there are some other issues that when we need to go deeper with each other, we then fail to do that because of lack of trust. And as you know, I am somebody who believes in defining things rather than saying it. So when somebody says to me, respect, I need it defined. When somebody says love, as you know, I need that defined as to what we mean. When somebody says commitment, all these things make up a relationship, whether it's friendship or whether it's love or even with your children. And I think we need to try to redefine those things to find ourselves again. Because, we were misplaced human beings.
I see what you say.
And a lot of our culture and our practices were misplaced and then were replaced by what the masters wanted. And for all those times, I think we now have like a post-traumatic slave syndrome running through our society, which makes some of our relationships quite skewed. They're not straightforward. And we need to look at it again and not be afraid.
Okay. I mean, an example would be like love. When someone says that, I love you.
Yes.
But they can love somebody, yet can still abuse them.
Yes.
Or still go around and, in a man's case, probably womanize and so forth, and still say they love. So, it doesn't really mean nothing. Can we use that love very loosely. I think one of the things you point out on a radio station that it's about commitment.
Yes.
Once you commit to each other,
Yes.
then the love will grow organically. I wonder if you can just zoom into what you said there in terms of how you look at the whole thing about love.
Yeah. Okay. How I look at this, people, is that a lot of times when people discuss love, they say, love is what you make it, and everyone is going to feel this differently. And I'm not saying that is not true, but what I do say is everything, including love, has its component parts. And if you break it down, there are going to be, for every relationship, certain commonalities where it's going to be the same. And for me, when it comes to love, you cannot say you love somebody, but you're not respecting them.
Okay.
You're not committed to them. Do you see what I mean? And that word commitment, to me, is one of the cornerstones of love. And it's one of the things that we're trying to run away from doing. So, for instance, in our community, some people will have children together, but they don't commit to each other.
Right.
The parents haven't committed to each other. Maybe the woman is trying to get the man to commit by having a child with him, and she thinks the child will make him commit, but he hadn't committed to her. And when you do that, you then find sometimes the relationship getting problems because they didn't commit to each other.
Okay.
He might have committed to sex or a short-term relationship, but he didn't want to stay for a long time.
Right. Right. Because also, just to add on to what you said, that we're not clear what we want from each other as well, you know, and that's not really been not been on the table, so to speak. We haven't really expressed, you know, that on the table, and so there's a lot of confusion because once you're clear what you want, you know what you don't want, you know, and then it's about having a purpose in that relationship. What's the purpose of that relationship? That's something to be defined as well. You know, we're gonna go with that, and then you would commit yourself to your
To interject, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If we're talking about love, you cannot get away from commitment. You cannot get away from respect. You can't get away from trust. Now, going in, I think if you are a person going into a relationship, you need to have a whole idea. And when I mean whole, I mean a properly formed idea in yourself as to your own self-respect, what you're expecting from the other person. Because if you don't know those things, then it's like a person who's going on a journey. You don't have to know the whole journey, but please, you need to know what destination you're aiming for. Now, I think nowadays people think that if they were to define these things at the beginning, that it's unromantic. And a lot of times you hear people saying, you just need to love each other. Now, what does that mean? Because as we were saying before, really and truly, there are people who love each other, but they are still abusive to each other.
Right, yeah.
There are people who love each other, but they would never commit to that person. But you're saying you love them.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose? What is this love?
Yeah.
You know, it's like when somebody says respect. What does it mean to you? Because it might mean something completely different, and you're assuming that it means the same to me. But what I'm saying is, there are components to love. You know, and we cannot get away from the fact that if you were going to make bread out of love, commitment would be the yeast. Yeah? And if you don't put the yeast in, you've got flour, you've got salt, you've got water, but you don't have bread. And that's what I've been trying to say. We need to re-examine these things and not be afraid to look at them, because we've got to take responsibility. A lot of abusive behavior goes on in our community, and I think a lot of times it's because we're not even thinking about what we want. And once we're in the relationship, we're too afraid to examine it because we think we're going to lose them, or somebody might be abusing you, and we're not thinking that that is affecting our child. But you got to, if you're going to start taking responsibility for your behavior, then you've got to think about, why am I in this relationship? Why am I committed to this man? What am I committed to? Why am I committed to this woman? What am I committed to? And when you start breaking down those components, then you're talking about love to me.
I just want to say one thing about abusive relationships. How do you look at that? The ultimate abusive relationship?
I think you're always going to have abusive relationships. You know, it's not just in, say, couples, say marriage or any sort of partnerships. I think you can have an abusive friend.
Right.
You know,
right.
You can have a country that abuses its citizens. So you're never really going to get away from that in human relationships. But I think when it comes to family relationships and the abuse that goes on, as we were discussing, I think that there has to be a two-pronged attack. And one, the first port of call, has to be in relation to the families. To the actual couple who are in their living room right now and maybe looking at us. They need to be re-examining what they're doing, both men and women.
Right.
And then we are a community-based people. So the community response, which has gotten less and less over the year, as the village has dissipated. We came from villages back home.
Yes, right.
And having come into the West, that village mentality, if you like, where we looked after each other and looked out for each other's children, has dissipated. And so now what we're doing is each one of us will do whatever we feel like. And each couple, as the European ideal is, will define their own life with no responsibility to anyone else. But I'm afraid that's not how it works. I'm afraid that's not how it works. So we need to start redefining some of these things. You know? And I'm really, really concerned that while we're sitting around and not wanting to say, have a discussion, an open discussion about why we're doing these things. When you hide away from things, to me, it means that you don't want to face reality. And the fact of the matter is, are we going to continue losing our boys to crime, to knife crime, to gun crime? Are we going to continue losing women who die because of domestic violence? Are we going to continue to have older people where the men are living alone, the women are living alone and lonely? And they're going to be going into the care system of Europe, in our case in England, where they're going to be abused in more cases than not. Or are we going to say, we've been doing this in this way all this time and it hasn't been working? What have we got to lose to re-examine it?
Yeah, because we interviewed Felicity here, and she's been a victim of domestic violence.
Yes.
And one thing she has done, she had to run away because her motive really was that she was going to die if she.
Of course.
You know, she had to run away.
Of course.
And result that she got hold of her kids there, man, turn her life right around. Yeah. And it's quite interesting because, as you said, that we have to be open and ask some questions, and we need to take responsibility.
Yes.
And the thing is that, as we're speaking now, that whoever you want to be your partner, you need to have an honest discussion with them.
Yes.
If they're going to be committed to you. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or to each other.
Yes.
You see? And the thing is that we don't really ask questions.
No, we just go in and the hotness of the relationship in the beginning, we think love will conquer all, but we're not even asking ourselves, what is a component of love? If we don't know that, how are you going to move on? And then when you're moving on now, you find that you've picked up a human being that is very flawed, that you are afraid to explore what it is inside this person. But you know, for me, it begins inside you, because there are many women in this world that nobody is going to abuse. It's almost like, you know, in the animal kingdom, the lion, he's not wanting to wear himself out, the lioness. He's going to, or she's going to try to find the weakest prey so that you pull that one down and you're guaranteed to eat. In a community where there is a lot of abuse, historically, And we've got to, you know, just be open. We're no different from other communities because there are many other communities who have worst things hidden. You know, and when I'm saying terrible things, I mean terrible things. And I have worked in those communities as a lawyer, so I know from experience whereof I speak. So I'm not denigrating the black community. I'm simply saying that we have some particular issues and they have some historical foundation that we shouldn't be afraid to look at, to raise the sheet and look what's under there, instead of hiding these demons and thinking, you know, we can just say respect, we can say this, we can say that, we can call each other king and queen and prince and this and that, but we're not treating each other with proper respect.
Because one of the things I've come to realize, we talk about domestic violence,
Yes.
that when a woman who be in a abusive relationship and go to another abusive relationship,
Another abusive
there's
relationship
a pattern there. So it's not so much about that person, it's something about you. Why you're attracting it.
You're bringing it
to you. And what they're looking for in a crazy way, some kind of tension or love or care.
Yes.
And the key, what you're saying really, that you know, you need to love yourself.
You've got to examine where you've gone wrong.
Yeah.
So I would, if I gave an example of myself, because sometimes that resonates more. When I was growing up, I was abused as a child. And I made up my mind as a child that when I grew up, nothing like that would happen to me. I have never been in an abusive relationship. Some people, because of the abuse that they've gone through and the inevitable psychological damage that happens to them as a result of that, when they grow up, it's as if it's written across their forehead. So when there is somebody who's abusive or wants somebody to abuse, they see the signs. Remember, 80% of communication is unspoken. So when somebody walks through the door, when a man or a woman see each other, they're sizing up. You know that. And there is so much that you pick up straight away. What she look like, was her, does she look pleasant? And all of that is unspoken. But there are other things that are just as unspoken that you're picking up. The signals are there and you're giving off as well. So you've got to deal with it so you stop giving it off. And stop attracting the wrong people. And if you attract them, by the time they stay around, oh, I misread her, or I misread him. He's not that type. You know, some women say, oh yeah, I knew he would be like that. How did they know? He didn't tell her. It's what you're giving up.
So, I mean, what we're saying is that, I mean, that you've got to deal with something about you. So it's about really loving yourself, working yourself, developing yourself, because once you have to deal with that, you give the right energy out.
You give the right energy and you attract the right person back to you. And when you're giving off that energy that the other person needs, even if it's negative energy, even if it is that that person is weak or that person is psychologically damaged, and that's the person I need. Do you know, many times in relationships, isn't it fascinating? You think, how did those two get together? you know, how did they find each other? In that kind of situation where it's the perfect person from the get-go. It's like Ian Brady and I can't remember her name, that criminal duo.
Okay then.
How did they find each other? You know, he was looking for a partner to do that so he could attract children by a woman. You know, and she was a ready victim. Or you have Rosemary West. How do those people find and attract each other and then cultivate that kind of evil? We really have to start being a bit more cerebral about this thing.
You see, and also what's interesting, I was reading a sister in last night, in fact, we was talking about a relationship.
Yes.
And she was saying to me that she find it very hard to find a man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can see why, because where she's at as well.
Yes.
And I used the word. Well, I said to that, why don't you start visualizing, right? Start visualize what kind of man you really want.
Yes.
In your mind, actually see what you have in your mind, right? And it could be anything. Where he looks like, if he's working, what kind of work he want to do, or what could it be. But as you visualize in detail, and that's a very powerful tool. And if you start using that, you will attract the kind of person to you by using the power of visualization. So I just want to throw it into the mix because visualization we do it anyway.
We do it all the time.
All the time.
We do it all the time.
But sometimes we visualize the wrong people into our life.
Or sometimes we're just going along.
Coming up specific.
And we're not being specific. We just want a man.
And
Or a woman.
Yeah.
Because we don't feel complete.
Yes,
and we're not looking at the name man or the name woman. What does that mean? We just think if it's somebody that you can have sex with, they look good when you're out, you'll cover the flaws.
That's right.
So that you can say, this is my man, this is my woman. But the fact of the matter is, as you say, if we're looking at our purpose and the fact that children are a massive responsibility. This isn't about you lay down and you bring another human being into the world. This is one of the greatest responsibilities in the world. And when you do that, I can't even tell you how my heart is full at the carelessness with which we bring children into the world and then allow them to be abused or to see abuse, which in itself is abusive, because we are not taking responsibility for our choices. Now, if at the beginning you made some choices, I'm not saying mistakes don't happen in life, because sometimes you get a lovely guy and by all means he's lovely. Something may happen. You might have an accident or something and change. And even then, you're re-examining.
Yes.
So if he changes and he's now going to be abusive, you knew from the get-go, I'm never going to be abused by anyone.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm never going to sit around for 50 years with a woman who has no ambition. She doesn't want to do anything in life. She doesn't want to put into the children. And I'm going to be the person doing 10 jobs and come home and clean. But there are many men in that position.
Yes.
And there are many women in that position. But they didn't examine things.
That's right.
And we have to look at the word commitment. What am I committed to? I know a lot of people will say, well, this is very unromantic. And of course, you're a lawyer, and so you would say that. But the fact is, one of the definitions that I give jokingly about a lawyer is that I don't kill relationships, but I bury it. I help to bury it. And the one thing about a dead body, you can dissect it and see what happened and why it went wrong. And I've done relationship law then from many different angles. And I have always tried to look at why this has happened and see the common thread. And a lot of times, we have to accept that there are many people in the community who are not educationally up there and who never will be, because from a mental point of view they are a little challenged, okay? And that's not just in the black community, that's in England as a whole, where the newspapers are directed at around, I think, 9-year-old. A reading age of 9-year-olds, sorry. So you're going to see that sometimes the reasoning skills is not there for everybody. But for those who do have the reasoning skills and who could be helping those people, we're not working that aspect of it out for ourselves. If you look at our community, we excel at many things. The women excel at many things. They excel at raising children on their own. The men, to me, are hard workers. But sometimes we're not excelling at relationship. at being with you and allowing you to be who you are, and you being with me and allowing me to be who I am. So sometimes, because of what we're experiencing out there in the world, we think, you know what, I'm going to come in and dominate in my house. And it's not the right thing when it's not according to the right motive. You see, because you're experiencing negativity out there that you can't control, then you come in and out of that weakness you over control in your home. I'm the man, I'm the woman. This is what, you try women, well, this is what this child is going to do, or, or sometimes you overcompensate.
I mean, you're kind of touching the whole thing about the energy, the masculine and the feminine energy now, and to me that's something we need to be aware of, because when a woman's in a male-dominated environment, she's got to have a masculine hat on to survive, that kind of masculine energy. But the challenge is when she comes home now, she's still got a hat on, and she demonstrates it with her partner. And whether he's right or wrong, no man like be treated like a little boy in his own home, man. So you see the energy conflict there.
Of course. But the other conflict is that, and you know me about this, I think that, you have got to, we have different roles to play in this life. That's why there's woman, some call it woman, and man. So we're not going to escape from the fact that we have different roles. But I think that the way society is going nowadays, women are saying we want something different. But I think that's because of the difficulties in relationships in the past that we've watched our parents, grandparents, and it's just been repeating itself. And I think people are thinking, we don't need this anymore. We would like to have a more equal discussion as to what's going on, because a lot of what was going on in the past was out of this sort of flawed thinking that we brought into it, sometimes even slave mentality thinking that has been brought into our model of family today. And unless we sit down and look at it, we're gonna have all kind of dating events, this and that. We'll be doing all sorts of things and saying all sorts of things, but we're not going to find change, because a deeper reasoning between men and women is overdue.
It's overdue. I just want to touch a little bit on the church, because even in the church, there is challenge in terms of where a woman wants to have a partner or get married and everything. And as you know, there's mostly women in the church.
Massively unbalanced.
Unbalanced, right? And one of the things what strike me is that a woman will say that, God will bring a man to the church, or wait to God.
He made man. He's not going to bring one. For some people, maybe.
Well,
but not everybody.
In the church, they're prefer to be in the church, and hopefully, he'll come.
I respect that. I respect that. But then they need to be challenging their leaders to have a more balanced church, and to not necessarily target the easier people to convert, which is women. And then for the men of the church to then not see their responsibility to go out there and do the hard job. If you have a model that is based biblically of family and so on and so forth, I think people would be attracted to that. But when you have a flawed idea of what it's about, and you still have single women raising children by themselves, the men are not in the church and do not want to come in, then I think it's not meeting their needs. And then the leadership need to ask themselves, I'm not saying bring down your ethos, your Christian ethos. I'm saying you need to ask yourself, what are we doing wrong? Why are we not attracting strong men to come here?
Okay then. Sister, you've really kind of opened up some reasons, and I think that we need to have a part two. I think you need to kind of tell me all thing about the church, because I think that's another whole
I
debate,
grew up in church,
debate and discussion.
so I know they need
Yeah.
to deal with it.
You know, debate and discussion around that. But my sister, it's really good to have you among us, just to reason with us, my sister. And you got a wealth of information and knowledge. So again, give thanks for your
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you everyone out there. And thank you, Mr. Tony, for all the work that you have been doing in the community. And you know that you continue to do. There's so many great, decent, loving black men in this community. And you know, we need to celebrate those ones rather than focusing on the nutty ones that are out there. So God bless you.